Hi, good evening. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Mrs. W. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm fine, thank you. Glad to be here.
Hello to everyone in the chat. Hi, Warrior. Yeah, so this Grant Amato, what a loser. He was like really a piece of shit.
Yeah, I don't. We haven't done a bunch of them that I really hated, and but this is one of the guys I just didn't really like. So
Yeah, I don't like him at all. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Seriously, I mean, it was I mean, it happened in Chilowada, Florida. It was a really nice family. I mean, Margaret and Chad Amato. They had three kids, well, three sons, and the oldest son, Jason. It wasn't Chad's biological son. Chad had adopted him. It was Margaret's kid, so he adopted him at the age of 3. But they were really close, and it was almost like they were, related, blood related. But they were not long after Chad married Margaret, and they had two more sons. So Cody was the middle, and I guess Grant was the youngest. And they had a really good relationship growing up, and they seemed really close. But I mean, I say seemed because it's like, I mean, well, this is crime talk, so it obviously must not have been that great. That's my
or
guess.
we wouldn't be bringing it up, right?
That's right. So, but Margaret and Chad, I mean, they had a really nice house. They were financially well off. I mean, they didn't have any issues providing for their kids. They had nice cars, just a really good, comfortable life. Um, I know Margaret liked racehorsing, like racehorses, like she liked that kind of thing. So they adopted a retired racehorse, and so she was usually at the stables, but her and Chad were really close. So she worked for a healthcare company, and I guess Chad was like a pharmacist at a local CVS. But he did have a side hustle. It was like computers and building computers. But I mean, they had a loving home. But I guess Chad, I mean, he could be really strict, and I guess, I mean, like any parent, you make rules, you want to stick by them, right? I mean, but there's like nothing physical. There was like no physical abuse or punishment like that. But still, no, the kids did not want to piss him off. So I guess they didn't like making him angry. Um, Jason's the only one that did not live in the home. So he ended up moving out when I guess like he was around 19 years old, and he basically started his own family. I mean, he was still really close to Margaret and to Chad, but he I guess he didn't really like the rules, but he left. So during their childhood years, Cody and Grant were inseparable. And I think it was, I mean, Joe, would you say it was like more Grant, like following Cody around? And, I mean, Grant was just like, a
Yeah,
loner.
yeah. I think the deal what we had here was Chad, like you said, he was really strict, and I think um,
Mm-hmm.
what one result of that is that you saw when Jason, like in his working career, he never missed a day of work. That's why they became alarmed when he didn't show up to work one day.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of just gives you the dynamic that maybe Dad was pretty demanding and maybe a perfectionist, and Jason uh, was always treated like the favorite son. I know you said there wasn't any physical abuse, but I know
Right.
I know Chad complained, and was it Jason? The oldest son was Jason, right?
Right.
I'm
Jason.
sorry. Then
Yeah.
I Cody was who the one was the favorite son. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I got those two.
Yes.
Sorry.
Cody really had his shit together.
Yeah. So Cody's the one that didn't miss a day of work for
No.
5 years, and
Right.
he was Chad's oldest biological son. Now Jason was the adopted son. Um, but
So
yeah.
Cody and Grant, I mean, they just spent a lot of time together. There was only a year in age difference. So I mean, they played video games together, high school activities, it was always together. And there was just never really any issues with their relationship, and they just seemed to have a really tight bond.
Yeah, my
Um,
point. I'm sorry. My
it,
point was going to be that uh, that Chad didn't. He favored his oldest biological son, and Grant was always trying. To me, it seemed like Grant was always trying to do exactly what his older brother, was doing. Um, so,
right.
so
Yeah.
that they did the wrestling team together, or not wrestling, but weightlifting team together and stuff like that. So they were inseparable. Um, but I know that the dynamics of that with brothers, because I had a bunch of them. That doesn't necessarily mean that they were real close, but they did everything together because they were close in age.
Right. So, I mean, they seem to have a good bond, and
Yeah,
obviously a bond that could be broken, set the stage. But yeah, the family, they did they did enjoy their Second Amendment, and I like this about the family. They had guns, and they all had their own firearms. Cody and Grant, they also started their own airsoft league. But other than his brother Cody, it was said like Grant, he was more of a loner. Any friends that Cody had were also Grant's friends.
right.
He just wasn't the best at making his own, and he never really saw them separately. Like it was only if Cody was around. So he just kind of, I mean, he piggybacked off his brother. Hi, Sea
Yeah.
Dragon, good to see you. And yeah, Warrior in the Garden said psychological abuse. Yeah, big time.
Well, I can tell
So
you that the youngest brothers, that's what we do with older brothers. We tag around with them. So that was like
yeah,
the way it was with me growing up. As the brother closest to me in age, I was friends with his friends. Um,
yeah,
and, he didn't like my friends. That's kind of the way it is with brothers. But yeah,
yeah,
it was a dynamic here as you had Grant and Cody. They were really close,
yeah.
close in the age. And they had, it seemed to have a really good relationship as kids. So,
Right. Grant, he went to UCF, and he got his nursing degree in 2011. He did want to work in the medical field like the rest of his family, so he was for a while, but he was fired from the hospital he worked at. So he stole 8 vials of propofol. Propofol, I guess it's like a heavy duty sedative. I guess like the ones used for surgery or during surgery. But he was caught with the vials of it inside of his pockets. And he was arrested, and he admitted to stealing the drug to give to patients. But in the report, he felt the patients weren't being adequately sedated by the doctor. The doctor prescribed meds. So he was just like, I'll just take some. But I think we all know what he was really doing with the medication. Um, he
what do
was
you think he was doing with it?
yeah, he was taking it himself.
You think
But
so?
oh
See, that's
yeah.
what I thought too. And that propofol, that's the same medication that killed Michael Jackson, by the way. But
Mhm.
in the U.S., it's used for it's real fast acting. It acts in like 2 minutes, but it only lasts about 10 minutes tops. So
Yeah.
they use it during surgery to keep people sedated. In Canada, it's used to help people die as a suicide assistance drug. So um,
Yeah.
it's a heavy duty drug. And I wondered, with the 8 vials, they found them around his workstation and stuff. I wondered what you thought, whether he was stealing that or giving it to the patients, like he said, which to me, that's that might be
Yeah.
assault and maybe even attempted murder, depending
Right.
on how much he gave it to him, or he was selling it to
Yeah.
support
I definitely think he was doing something. I don't think it was for the patients. Hi Par 5, good to see you.
Yeah, I kind of don't think he was giving it to the patients, because I think
Yeah.
if the investigators thought he was, then we would have seen an investigation towards that direction. I think they were pretty
Right.
sure he was either taking it himself or.
Oh yeah, for sure. He was charged with grand theft, but those charges were dropped in November, and I'm pretty sure his family probably had something to do with that because, they didn't want to go him to go to jail, so they really, they did everything they could to help him out. It also could be, because he did claim that he was giving it to the patients, and I guess hospitals didn't want to deal with all the inevitable lawsuits. So, you know,
Yeah,
that just
I would think
disappeared.
that would be considered a serious crime. Especially since it's such a powerful drug. Um,
Yeah.
I would I would think if the investigators thought that that's what he was doing with him, they would have charged him with it. Um,
Right. I mean, I really, like you said, I doubt Grant was giving anything to his patients. I'm sure it was just for his own party.
yeah. Now it did have a street value of over $2,000, so he could have very well been selling it. But I don't know. I'll let you go on. You can.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sure you.
Grant wasn't too smart, so I don't know. But we do know that he had an online presence, so who knows what he was really doing.
Right.
Um, but if you don't see it now, you'll definitely see it later. He's like, but his family's really, upset with them and just very disappointed. And, they'd ask him when was he going to get another job. They'd get into arguments, over his employment status. And, Grant had just begun like having these bouts of depression, and he just wasn't, I guess, motivated enough I mean, he wasn't even motivated enough for waking up in the morning. Just mentioning a job would literally cause, issues with him. So, yeah, it's like parents when you're living at their house. I mean, they want you to go get a job. I mean,
Yeah.
what the. I mean, it's not like you're almost 30. How could they possibly expect you to go out and get a job at almost 30 years old?
You
Um,
picked up on just exactly what I was going to say. This guy is not. It seems like we're talking about a teenager, but we're talking about a 30-year-old dude. So
Right. So he was, I mean, he was living rent free. His family was paying literally for everything. And when his parents would refuse to give him anymore, he would just, ask his older brother, Cody. And because he didn't have a job, he's home all the time and, being just, I guess, not very social. So he started going to this website, and it was, you guys may be familiar with it. It's called myfreecam.com. I'm
I
just
was not
kidding.
familiar with that.
Um, I'm just kidding. But
Oh,
if
well,
you are, but hey, if you are, we don't judge. Hey, you do you. So, but yeah, it's called myfreecam.com, and of course he, started hitting up the ladies. I'm just, it's like, they're cam girls, and
but
you
it's
know,
not free. Why would they have my free?
yeah, well, it is free until you want to tip them or go private with them or ask them to do something.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
Okay, so yeah, should we just pause for any of you wanting to type that into your browser? I mean, I'm just saying, go ahead. I'm kidding, but yeah. So if you like free and you like, yeah, it's Cam Girls. It's a site. It allows you to view different cam girls and pay like for a variety of. I don't know. This is fairly awkward, but
You
yeah,
want me to take care of it?
the cam girls and like just like I don't know,
You
one on
you
one
can.
video, sexy chat, kind of like sexting but in chat. So it's not all get naked stuff. However, I did check out the site, and some of these ladies, yes, they're naked. They're already naked. So, but yeah, it could be just general chatting. But I would think the ones that you visit the site, I don't know,
You
it's like you're not just asking how your day was. It's technically, an over 18 site, so it's more, I guess you'd call it like an X-rated site. Okay,
yeah.
this is just getting really awkward. So, okay.
You can
we're
send it.
we're
Wait.
starting to sound, Joe, like we're sponsors. Okay.
I was
Yeah.
just say you can send them gifts, which they will use live for you.
Yes.
So
Yes. But Grant finds this cam woman on there, and her name is actually Sylvia, but Grant called her Sylvie, and I'm just gonna call her Sylvia because that's her name.
Slava Vova.
Yeah, she's
Slava-
from Bulgaria, and Grant, he fell in love with her, and he would just keep coming back. No pun intended, but yeah, he would just keep coming back, and
He was throwing some cash at her too.
to this same woman, yeah. So and he would just watch her literally for hours, and she was
Six hundred
saying
bucks an hour.
she was saying all the right things to make him feel, I guess, special. And she said this stuff to like literally every guy, but when you're Grant, you just assume that she's in love with you. But yeah, they would talk for hours, and he really felt their connection was real and that she was real, but it was probably not even her real name. But he was like paying her up to like $2,500 a day at some point. So of course she spent time with him, because I mean it's like she's in Bulgaria. He's paying her like a shitload of money, and he's feeding her, a bunch of lies. So, you know, um,
I think
but yeah,
she liked
he,
the money.
yeah, she liked money. But yeah, he did lie to her about where he was at in life, and she really had no clue that he was, chatting her up like from his parents' house and that he had no job. But he did tell her he was a very successful gamer, like a professional gamer, and that he drove an expensive car. He told her that he had his own place, and he literally just spent hours and money, and money he didn't have, to watch Sylvia model and dance online or whatever else she did. But the more he would tell her about how successful he was, the more money he spent and the more attention he got from her. And that's what he wanted, because for him this it felt very real, and he couldn't see it for what it was. And he would get about an hour of her time. I guess when you do the calculation, I guess it was around $600, and that was a typical day. And he would spend around $2,500 a day. So in addition, he would send her gifts like an occasional dildo or sex toy or some lingerie, you know. Um, but I do want to play the video where he made a video for her. He's like talking to her in the video, and it's just, you can almost see how giddy he is in this video, because it's like he's making this video for her and he is like, he's smitten. Just let's go to the clip.
All right, Sylvia, look at me. I'm outside going to check the mail, and I'm asking you if you can please, pretty please, send me one of your videos. I love it so much when you just send them to me. Yeah, I don't like buying your stuff. It makes me feel weird. Could you please send me one, though?
Okay, how creepy was that? How creepy is that? That is so creepy.
That is
Yeah?
creepy.
Yeah. So, in addition to that, like, the gifts and stuff, I think it was November of 2018. So, at this point, like, bank statements showed he was spending up to $20,000. So, without him having a job, you're probably wondering where he got all this money to give. Um, so he was getting money from like his parents' credit cards, family, actually anyone, by any way he could get money. And I'm thinking, Joe, you might have been right that he might have been selling the drugs that he was taking from the hospital and using that to pay her. I mean, it's possible.
That's what
So,
that's kind of what I suspected.
yeah.
I would run a drug test this guy as soon as I met him. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, Par 5 said cringe. Oh my god, I literally cringed the whole time. Yeah, he's so cringeworthy. Oh my god. Um, but yeah, he hacked bank accounts of family members, and Cody did give him money on occasion. His parents confronted Grant about the charges they were seeing on their bank accounts, and he told them, hey, the money, it's for Twitch, it's promoting, my accounts. I could grow my channel. And he wanted to gain followers and subscribers, and he just tried to make them think that it would pay off in the long run. I mean, they really didn't know what it was for, but they knew he was stealing large amounts of money. And he really did want to be a professional gamer. He really did want to do everything he said. That basically all the lies that he was telling Sylvie, that's how he did want his life to be. But of course, he was just a big loser. But I'm sure they thought it was a lie, like his parents, but proven, like, it just couldn't be proven, and he wouldn't answer any questions. So I really don't see how his family was so cool about it. I mean, he was hacking their accounts and stealing, their information and credit cards. And when do you say get out or get a job? I mean, when would you say that? You know, and Warrior in the Garden said this is just bad as a crackhead. It really is. It's like it's yeah. He was totally addicted. I mean, he was all sucked in, and yeah, he's just a big mess. But here's the thing. So Cody and his friend Jericho, they went to some sort of anime convention in Japan. And anime is like it's kind of like adult cartoons. I mean, it's like cartoons, but with more adult themes. It's not like, I mean, it wouldn't be appropriate for a kid, but they must have really liked anime because they went to a convention that was in Japan. And Grant went with them, and Cody just covered all the cost because, that's what he did. And part five, I'm beginning to think he had a lot of mommy issues. um, so the last day, Grant told them that, hey, I'm just not feeling well. I'm just going to stay behind, I'm just going to stay in the room. You guys go out, have a blast. And he stole Jericho's credit card, and you see where this is going, right? It's straight to the Cam website. So, I mean, yeah. Oh yeah, anime is cool. Like, anime's cool. It's just like he made it really not cool. It's like, yeah, Grant just, he was obsessed, Um, he just had a lot of issues. But yeah, so you see, like I said, you see where it's going. I mean, the kid didn't notice his card was gone until he got a message from his parents, and they were like, "What are these charges for?" They realized that Grant stole it because when they got home, the family was just really disappointed. They had obviously found out. Jericho's family, I guess, had contacted them, and naturally, that's gonna, everybody's upset. Um, so in December of 2018, they noticed a lot more money was missing, and of course they did confront Grant about it, and that just led to, it led to more heated arguments. And Grant ended up leaving that day. His mom had called and reported it because he was depressed, and she thought he might be suicidal. Grant was not suicidal. He was much too narcissistic for that. Um, so she told the police she had gotten a text from him saying, I'm really tired of everything. I'm just going to handle it in my own way. He ended up driving to his aunt's house in Florida, and she said that he seemed really depressed, and he asked if he could stay with her and, his uncle, and she let him. Um, she said that he was awake all night and slept all day. That's what he'd do. He'd just stay up all night and sleep all day. Um, they did have guns in the house, but they decided to lock them up while he was staying there. Um, yeah, if I felt someone was suicidal, I certainly wouldn't want to be around them, just because, I mean, anybody that doesn't care about harming themselves, I mean, I don't think they'd care about anyone else's safety either, but that's just me. Um, I mean, not all mental illness, I guess, but it just can manifest in ways that will completely change how their reality is just so warped. And one example is like a murder suicide, because I knew these neighbors of my grandparents, and they were really good people. And the wife, like, he killed his wife and then he shot himself. And you don't kill people you care about, like, you really don't. Yeah, right, Joe? I mean, you wouldn't kill somebody that you cared about.
I haven't so far, but Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that definitely indicates that there's not as much feeling there as you thought, or was put
Mm,
on by the family, because there's obviously something going on in this family, because you just don't shoot your family in the face and in the head
yeah. We're not
because
there yet.
you're mad at them. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I mean he clearly he wasn't mentally well, and what's so shocking is that no one really saw it coming. They were thinking that he's suicidal. But Grant Amato is exactly like this. No one sees what's coming. His family's just completely blindsided with what he's capable of doing. And like I said, they thought he was suicidal, but I mean, he really didn't want to kill himself. He wants to live for Sylvie, Sylvia. But his aunt, she looks at her bank account and literally hundreds of dollars on every charge. So Grant had stolen from her too. Stole her credit card information, and he was using it like to just pay and watch Sylvie at night, while they were sleeping. And remember how I said he was awake at night and slept during the day? Well, that's kind of what he was doing. Yeah, he was. I mean, it was like a fun night, I guess, for him over there. But his uncle and his grandma and I think a cousin, they also had their information stolen by Grant. And Sylvia is literally making a killing. So, I mean, his aunt's calls, she calls up Chad and Grant's, which is Grant's father, Chad's Grant's father. And she told him about, like what's going on, that her credit card information was hacked. And that's when Chad, he just, he broke down. He was crying. He's like, and I think at that moment, that's when he realized that the problem wasn't going to go away, and he was desperate, to stop him and to get him help. And, the family alone, they were already in debt of like $150,000 or more. And Chad told her he didn't think he'd be able to retire for years because Grant literally just screwed all that up because he's going to be paying for this for a long time. But he promised to pay her back. He did ask her not to press charges. I mean, really, why should the entire family pay for his porn addiction? I mean, it would have been much cheaper. I mean, he could have just gone to a random porn site, but no, I mean, a prostitute actually would have been much cheaper. Would have been a cheaper way out. I mean, he could have actually, he could have actually gotten laid for all that money he spent. I mean, that's a lot of money to pay for just jerking off, wouldn't you say? I mean, is that just me? I'm just thinking, I'm imagining spending over $200,000, up to $250,000. I mean, yeah, he really had some issues. But yeah, looking for love in a cam girl. I mean, he was just too dumb, I guess, to realize that she, she wanted his money, not him. And like I said, it wasn't even his money. And Grant, though, I mean, he's seriously like the biggest loser. I mean, he spent all that money of his family's money just to interact with this woman. And it's like the family knew he needed help, but they didn't want him to go to prison. So they come up with this plan to have like an intervention with him at the aunt's house, Maury in the garden said you porn is free. Well, too bad nobody told Grant about you porn. Because there, I'm telling you, I said a long time ago that porn saves lives. And yes, in this case, you porn would have saved the whole family. It could have potentially saved the entire family. But yeah, mom, dad, and Cody, and their older brother, Jason, he even showed up to the aunt's house. And, what happened is like once Grant like walks out of the house heading to his car, that's where they confront him. They told him he was either going to a treatment facility or he was going to be cut off from the family. And this family really was just so supportive, like shockingly supportive. I mean, like they gave him so many chances. I mean, I just feel like he had every chance in the world. I mean, And they were just trying to keep him out of prison, which is really what he probably needed. But they wanted to help him, and he agreed to go to the rehab clinic in South Florida, to get help for his problem. He went voluntarily, and the clinic basically was anyone with any kind of addiction could go there, but most of the people that went there, I mean, it was like drug and alcohol addiction. There might have been some porn addictions there, but not really sure exactly how successful that was. Obviously, in Grant's case, it did not help. Um,
He didn't
there,
stay for the whole program was the problem. It,
right?
it was this. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, he didn't. There just aren't many clinics that are for, internet addiction, or I don't really know what you would call it, internet webcam addiction, or porn addiction, but they drive out there with Grant, and they're all just like, they're really positive, and they're happy. And, he agreed, just think he's like finally getting help, and, everybody's going to be so much better. Their life will get back to normal. They all went home like they had high hopes. But they were able to hack his computer. And that's when they realized Grant was literally living this fake life. Like, he was living this fake life online. And they found out he was claiming to be rich, like a rich, successful gamer that lived alone, that had expensive cars. And, but like I said before, where's all this money? Like, where was it going? They thought it would be best to like take matters, into his own hands. So, but yeah, they thought it was a good idea to reach out to Grant's friends and to Sylvia and to let them all know the truth. And the friends, when I say friends, they weren't really friends. I think they were more like online acquaintances. And, Grant was friends with Sylvia's, like, it's like a fan community. It's like everybody he was friends with, they just sit and watch Sylvia on the cam. And so they all had like this interest in her. It was like a common interest kind of thing. They all like to watch her. They all like to give her money. So Cody and Grant messaged everyone saying that Grant had been lying, that he lived at home, that he had no job, and that he wasn't rich, and he had no nice cars. Like, he just had, a regular car. They also told Sylvia that he had been giving her money stolen from all of them, like all of the family. And they were no longer allowed to contact each other. And Grant was supposed to be at the treatment facility for 60 days. But like Joe said, he left early. He left after like 2 weeks, and he was basically saying, I'm cured. It's like, wow, I don't want to watch porn anymore. I'm over cam girl. Yeah, I'm good now. So he must have just told the facility what they wanted to hear. But they did say that, they really couldn't do anything for him. They just let him go. And Grant goes back home. It proved not to be a very good idea, but still he went, back home, and Chad and Grant sat down. They did go over some new rules, and he and Chad gave Grant ultimatums. You can live in my house and you can follow my rules, or you can go and out on your own, or you could join the military. But you're not going to. There's a lot you're not going to do anymore. One of the rules was not being allowed to have a cell phone. And if he did have one, like, it had to be one without internet access. No using the internet at night. Like, he'd have to get a job. He couldn't have a computer in his room. What else? Like, no computer in his room. It's kind of like what parents would do with a teenager. But keep in mind, Grant is almost 30 years old. And, Chad, gave him another rule. And that was like, he would have to cut all ties with Sylvia. He even told him, and they contacted her and told her everything. And I think at this moment, that was when Grant snapped. I think he immediately wanted to kill them, but he was like just kind of brooding at this point. It just made him so angry. It finally, pushed him over the edge. Grant did commit to following the rules, but it wasn't long before he asked his mom if he could use her phone. That her phone had internet access, and she let him. And she was sad for me. She was kind of like, I guess Grant, because he was the youngest, he was more like I don't know, a mama's boy kind of thing, But yeah, she felt sad for him, and she decided to let her or to let him use her phone and like talk to Sylvia on Twitter. And but Chad found out about this and told him that he had ruined his retirement and all the changes, the just all the money he had spent, like he would never be able to retire on time. And he told him to leave, He's like, "You broke the rules, you're done. I want you out of my house." And Chad had left for work, and Grant had packed like a small bag, and Cody was at work. Cody told his girlfriend later that he had to go deal with, quote, like some stupid shit. Yeah. Warrior said sounds like a halfway house. Yeah, he needs to be somewhere. But yeah, so Cody, he's the responsible one. He's kind of like, been there for Grant all his life. And, but yeah, he had to go deal with all this drama and, all the family drama going on. So he left work and he went home. Okay, well, Friday, this is a Friday, it was January of 2019, January 25th of 2019 to be exact. So the sheriff's office, they got a call, and it was from a friend of Cody's, and some coworkers. And Cody hadn't shown up for work, and he wasn't responding to any text messages, and it was really unlike him. Cody was very responsible. He'd actually never missed a day of work. And he, of course, would always answer his text messages. So police did go do a welfare check, like at the house, and this was a little bit after 9 a.m. They knocked on the door. Of course, they didn't get an answer. They did take notice that the cars were all in the driveway, and all the windows downstairs were covered in paper, you know? You couldn't see inside at all. And they were able to get inside the home, and, they had to go in because they couldn't see, but yeah, when they did, they saw Chad lying on the floor in like a pool of blood. And they also saw lots of dried blood in the kitchen, and there were some claw-like marks, I guess, like in the blood, like he had tried to crawl across the floor. There was some chicken, chicken on the counter. I guess it was defrosting, and that was possibly because Chad was going to get dinner started like after getting home from work. So he had been shot from behind, and he also had like a gun and a holster on his right hip. When I first found that out, I wasn't sure, if he just normally carried it, or, if he suspected that Grant might try something, or, if they were in danger. They found Margaret, the mom. She was in her office, and she was slumped over her computer keyboard. She was sitting in the chair, and she was shot while at the computer. Yeah, she was just sitting there with a glass of wine on the desk, and she'd been on the computer, and she was approached from behind just like Chad. They found Cody. Cody was on the floor by the garage door, or rather it's like the door that goes into the garage, from the kitchen or from the house. And he had also been shot and was deceased. There was a backpack near him, and there's two handguns. Um, and it was just a few feet away from his body. And there were four bullet casings, and they were also found on the ground. So it really did appear to be a murder suicide, and that Cody may have shot his mom and his dad and then himself. But further into the investigation, it was clear it was not a murder suicide. Like, police were trying to locate Grant, and they were able to track down his car. It was at a DoubleTree hotel in somewhere in Orange County, Florida. But they were able to get his room number, and they knock on his door. So let's go to that clip.
This is just released body cam video showing the moment Orange County Sheriff's deputies took Grant Amato into custody at a hotel.
You're being cooperative, sir. We appreciate that.
The man accused of killing 3 family members seemed so docile, so meek. Law enforcement was looking for Amato because he was the suspect in the triple murder, accused of shooting his mother, father, and brother to death in their Seminole County home.
It's just a normal routine when we encounter someone that we want to make sure you're safe.
The alleged motive for the murders is so bizarre, Hollywood script writers couldn't make it up. According to investigators, the family was in turmoil. Amato's parents put him in a sex and internet addiction rehab clinic. Amato allegedly siphoned off thousands from them to pay for chats and buy gifts for a Bulgarian woman he met on an adult website. Now, 5 months later, Grant Amato is ready to stand trial. This week, there was a hearing to decide what evidence will be allowed.
Now we know you don't have any weapons. We'll get those restraints off of you.
This body cam video is expected to be part of the evidence. In the video, you see Amato surrender. He puts up no fight, even encourages deputies to check his room for weapons.
I mean, I have my like duffel bag and whatnot in there if you guys want to check that and whatnot.
Well, it'll be up to the detectives to talk to you.
After he was taken into custody, Amato was questioned and eventually charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Michelle Meredith, West 2 News.
Okay, so you can see him on the police body cam, and he just gets down on his knees, and he turns to be handcuffed. I mean, to me, that says guilty right there. But at this time, they had nothing on him, and but it was just odd the way he responded. And I think that was just a big red flag. I mean, there wasn't any DNA of anyone other than the victims. There was no murder weapon. The guns that were on the scene, they weren't the murder weapon. But, he wasn't being arrested at this point. He was just taken in for questioning. And, he was interrogated, I think, for 7 hours. They talked about, all the money problems, just all the issues of what had been going on for the past several months. And, he was honest, about everything. I mean, he wasn't honest about, what happened after Chad had asked him to leave, because he said that, Cody told him not to worry and that he would take care of the parents, and talk to them. And, he made it sound like he left the house and that they were alive and well when he last saw them, and that he had no idea, what happened. But there's one thing, and that, he hasn't even been told why he was there, and he didn't ask. I mean, if the police come to get you, what the first thing you would be like, whoa, why am I here? What's going on? Why are you at my door? But Grant hadn't been told, what happened or that anyone was dead. I mean, these are just, some pretty big clues, and I'm sure investigators didn't have to work that hard to figure that out, but he was shown photos of everything, just photos of the whole gory mess of his family, their bodies. He claimed that he had nothing to do with it, and he went on to tell the police, and how he had been accused for, stealing from them, not following their house rules, and that he might as well be blamed for this too. I mean, but seriously, I mean, this guy is just the worst. But yeah, he told them that he left the house at 9:30 p.m. and that they were fine. His family was fine when he was on his way out, and he said he spent the night in a grocery store parking lot. That was actually true. But and said that he had a job interview later that day. Jason's called, and of course he's really upset. But they did allow a one-on-one meeting, and Jason walks in. And he gives Grant a hug, and then he sits down, and he just like starts asking him if he had anything to do with it. I mean, he just told him that he needs to know, and that he would be really upset if he heard it from an attorney, or the media. But Jason really seems like like a really kind person, and he just needs closure. But he probably is still trying to process everything. He literally lost his entire family. I mean, no one can imagine that, I'm sure. I mean, the only one left was his brother, that had literally no answers to give him. And, Jason wasn't angry, or, he didn't seem like angry and aggressive at all. I think he really just wanted to know the truth. He did tell Grant that he thought he had something to do with it, before he left. And Grant was like released, I guess on the 26th, because, they had no evidence showing that he did it, and it's not like he confessed. So, of course they let him go. Detectives, I guess they knew they were going to have a really strong, just a really strong case to get him convicted, because it's really hard to do when you don't have proof, but he did have motive, and, everything is pointing to him, but there's just there's no physical evidence. Let's go to the next clip.
Grant Amato is serving life in prison without parole for murdering his family. His mother, father, and brother were all gunned down in their Florida home on January 24th, 2019. State attorneys said Amato wanted more money to pay a Bulgarian beauty he met online, Sylvia Ventislavova.
Poor baby, I'm so sorry.
No, you're not. You're not sorry at all.
The year before the murders, Amato spent around $200,000 on the alluring webcam model. The prosecution told a jury he'd siphoned that money from his parents, Chad and Margaret. $600 more disappeared from his brother Cody's account the morning after the massacre.
If you could please stand, Mr. Amato.
In the Circuit Court of the 18th Judicial Circuit in and for Seminole County, Florida, State of Florida versus Grant Amato, case number 1933 CFA. Verdict, count 1, Margaret Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder.
A Seminole County jury found him guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder. That panel spared his life by choosing a penalty of prison instead of death.
Are you satisfied with the closing argument that was conducted by your counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Amato chose not to take the stand during the trial. Behind bars, however, he's heard in jail calls recorded by the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, discussing case details with a documentary producer.
I mean, we would just have, like, I think I described it as we were acting like a couple of high schoolers who had, like, fallen in love and were just talking on the phone all the time.
The 30-year-old inmate describes being misunderstood, especially about his connection with Sylvia and how it consumed his life.
That was something that was foreign to me, like I've always said. That was the first time I ever went to a site like that. The first girl I met, I just kind of fell in love with her at first sight. I was spending 4 hours a night on the site.
His affection for the woman he never met seems to still be intact. He shared how violated he felt when the state showed photos from his computer of the model.
Like, those are things that she made. So those were public for everybody who paid me them. Right. But all those other photos, like all just single shots of her, pretty much all the selfies with her, those were all personal for me. So nobody else had those. I think it's because, like, I would just request to see, like, what she looked like. And like, you got all the makeup off. I just want to see the normal you. And they seemed personalized.
Now on appeal, his attorney told Court TV earlier this month one potential juror should have never made it to the final round.
She was asked about her feelings about a life in prison sentence, and she expressed a concern about the cost to her as a taxpayer, which is a extreme admission of not being impartial.
I feel like I have really solid grounds for appealing not only the whole trial phase, but just the whole entire case altogether.
Amato maintains his innocence in these jail recordings. He also insisted his unusual relationship that fueled the case against him was not one-sided or just about money.
I would flat out agree that there was a money aspect to it, but that's with anybody. You know, if you were married to somebody who had a lot of money, you would enjoy that hurt of that relationship. Everybody loves to get paid, basically. But she never asked me for money to begin with, ever. And she never made it a point that that's why she wanted to talk with me.
It's unreal. I mean, if he wasn't a convicted murderer who wiped out his family, I would almost feel sorry for him. I mean, he got played. He got totally played. He thinks he had a relationship with this woman. Unbelievable. Let's bring in Court TV crime and justice reporter Julia Janae. Wow. I still get these phone calls are absolutely so revealing, Julia. I mean, I listen to those and I hear someone who believes that he was in a real relationship, something special, kind of like a marriage, you know. Insane.
He sounds so candid in these recordings. He talks freely about Sylvia, and he does say that this was a relationship that was real. He actually talks about wanting to have gotten on the stand and talked to the jury about that relationship and to describe to them how it wasn't the kind of obsession that the state portrayed it as, and he really wanted to clarify that. And that was one of the only times that he talked in these recordings about wanting to take the stand and what he wanted to clarify.
Okay, so where is he tonight, and what's the status of his appeal?
He is in the Holmes Correctional Institution in Florida, so he is in prison. He was in jail when these calls were recorded, and these were released as part of the state attorney's office. Their appeal in this case, or their response to the appeal, they had to turn these over as part of discovery. So this is something that likely will come up in this appeal. It is still pending, and it was filed back in August by his attorneys, August of last year. And their main issues are that there was an issue with jury selection. They don't feel that it was fair, but also that there was a lot of evidence that came in that should not have, including those interrogation videos that involved the police talking to Grant not too long after these murders happened.
All right, how about his parents and his brother? You know, the ones who tried to help him, the ones who supported him. Did he talk at all about them, or was he focused really on this relationship with Sylvia?
Though there was a lot of focus on that relationship, he did talk about his parents and talked about his brother and how there was a lot of tension in the home and that he wanted to be kicked out. He said that they were just trying to do what was right, trying to get him to follow these rules, and that it was problematic for both of them. So he said he wanted to get kicked out of the house. That was part of the trial and one of the motives that the prosecutors gave for why he carried out these crimes. But he did also talk about how he was concerned or found it interesting that this jury was asking a lot of questions about his brother, Jason Amato, the only surviving member of this family, the one who was not living in this home. He said he thought it was interesting that the jury asked questions about his whereabouts as if they possibly thought Jason could have been a person who did this, but he said he had no reason to believe that his brother was involved in any way, but still maintaining his own innocence.
Julia Janae, thank you so much. Unbelievable case, and we'll continue to track any developments for you.
Okay, the comments, you guys are hilarious, but I couldn't stop laughing. Yeah. So, yeah, what would a guy that, you know, that looks at webcam models like, well, who would they look like? You know, somebody, and then Tony Dennison said Biden. They would look like Biden. But yeah, that's funny. But yeah, Grant, he really thought this lady was all about him, but really, I mean, she was just all about the money, And I mean, I can't blame her, I mean, he was like literally paying her thousands of dollars, and it's like she's in another country. So, and this is what she does. I mean, she's just running a business, So, um, but yeah, she's like, she was all about him as long as he was paying her. Um, yeah, crazy. Um, so they questioned the whole family.
Oh, we lost some audio on Mrs. W. Y'all, is that just me, or can you all hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Anybody? Anybody? Still can't hear you, Mrs. W. I don't know if anyone can hear me. Can you give us a 5x5 in the chat if you can hear us? I still can't hear anything, Mrs. W. Hello, can you hear me out there? All right, I think we are still having technical difficulties. Mrs. W should be back in just a moment. Can you hear me? Can you say yes or no if you can hear me in the chat, please? And this is Mrs. W.
Okay, I think I'm back.
You are back. I can hear you. I don't know that they can hear me. I think they can, but I'm not sure.
Huh. Okay, so yeah, I'm not really sure what is going
Where
on.
you were. Yeah, we apparently lost you there, audio, so for a minute, but I'm not sure if I'm still. Oh, okay. They're saying us we're 5x5 now. Now they can hear us, Mrs. W.
Okay, good. Um, so I think I was saying something about Cody's girlfriend.
You were, yes.
Okay, so I was saying something about Cody's girlfriend, like, I guess like how they questioned the family, and they questioned her, and something about her being worried that Grant was gonna kill everyone. So, that I don't know if what was the deal about that, but she clearly had expressed that it was a concern, and it was determined it wasn't a murder suicide. So the bodies had like been moved around. Chad was shot from behind, but the first shot didn't kill him, and that's why the floor had streak marks in the blood, like where he tried to crawl across the floor. So can you even imagine? Like, he's been shot, he's not dead, he's trying to crawl away, and he's probably thinking, he probably knew that it was his son. Thank you, Par 5. I'm glad I'm back. I'm glad this is working now. Um, but yeah, so Grant was arrested on 3 counts of premeditated murder. They did find a credit and a debit card on him and a pair of gloves. That I guess that belonged to the gloves were like belonged to his father, and the cards like his brother Cody. He also had his passport with him, so he was possibly going to try to flee, maybe head to see Sylvia. There was a note on Grant, and it was signed by Cody, and it was handwritten. It said something like, sorry for what's going on, and I'll take care of it, don't worry. And, it was later determined that Grant had written it himself. So, he's still trying desperately to like play out the murder suicide, agenda, which was just ridiculous. But yeah, so his trial was in 2019. It was in July, I think, July of 2019. So sometime in the summer. His defense team tried like multiple reasons with like theories of a drug deal gone wrong. Some of this stuff, it just didn't make sense. All because like a small amount of marijuana was found in the home. So they were like, also like, well, what if somebody broke in, but the prosecution attorneys, they were able to like piece together a timeline in relation to Margaret's last internet activity, and I think it was like steps taken on a fitness app of Chad's, like like I guess when it stopped. And Cody had come home like around 10. So basically, as soon as Cody had walked in, Grant shot him. You know, Grant spent several hours just moving bodies around to look like a murder suicide. And it was also proven that the gun on Chad, it was actually placed on him after death because there was blood on Chad's pants, like under the holster, which wouldn't have been able to get there, while wearing the holster. So it was also found like that Chad had logged into his bank app around midnight on his iPhone and using the finger reader on the night he died. And it also showed that he had transferred money to Grant's bank account through the app. And so when investigators saw that Chad's finger had been wiped clean, they realized like Grant had like cleaned his dead dad's finger to do that log into his phone. And yeah, that is like really disturbing. So the very night he murdered like his entire family, also used Cody's credit cards to pay and watch Sylvia, sending her over $600. And this was while sitting in his car at the grocery store parking lot. I told you he wasn't lying about that. That's one thing he told the truth about. But yeah, you just murder your whole family and then, yeah, I mean, come on. It kind of makes me want to see what this lady's all about. She must be amazing. I'm just saying, I know she is still on OnlyFans. She's got an OnlyFans page. As far as I know, she's still, life still goes on for Sylvia. I mean, she's still doing the cam girl thing, But yeah, so he's sitting there in the grocery store parking lot at like 3 in the morning. I mean, just really unbelievable. So on Grant's computer, there was a letter that Grant had typed out, and it was found. It was like 8 pages begging for forgiveness and that he would never replace Sylvia and that everything his family told them was a lie. And it was typed maybe 2 days before the murder, and he did admit that he wasn't successful and that it was only to impress Sylvia and that he would do anything to win back her trust. And he said that he would never, he would never forgive himself for making Sylvia sad. And, he asked for, quote, like an actual second chance. Yeah, so he says that, he can't give up on her and he never will. If that doesn't say creepy stalker, I don't know what does. Because that is just like, I don't know how well, like, or how good her English was, but yeah, I'm sure Sylvia had to be creeped out, but I think the money probably helped. I mean, I'd probably be less creeped out. I mean, if somebody's giving me like hundreds of dollars, it's just, she was probably not that creeped out, maybe, I'm just assuming. But yeah, he basically said that he would give her his life to make her smile again. So creepy, so freaking creepy. But the jury reached a verdict in 8 hours. Like I saw this, I saw the trial, and Grant, he was really cold and emotionless through the trial, and like he did appear to cry when they showed the crime scene photos, like of his family's bodies, and other than that, it was like basically like he was like a deer in headlights the entire time. At one point, they show Sylvia on the screen, and ew, he just fixates on it. He was just like, I mean, it was just the creepiest thing. Like his whole family is dead, but this cam girl comes up on the screen in the courtroom, and he's just like looking at it with goo goo eyes, like, ew, ew. But yeah, I mean, this Sylvia must. I mean, I'm gonna give her credit. She must be amazing. I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't know Sylvia. Never seen her other than what we saw, the pictures and stuff, but yeah, in the video. But yeah,
She's not that great.
yeah. Well, I don't. She sure, or maybe it was. Maybe Grant was just having some sort of crazy issues because he was clearly crazy.
I'm not sure
But
that he had any girlfriends or anything prior to this. I did you see anything like that when when you were researching?
no, I
You didn't either.
I didn't either.
No.
And he did tell investigators that she was he described her like a virtual girlfriend. So he really did think that he had some sort of, you know,
Oh yeah,
relationship.
he thought he'd bought himself a girlfriend. I think so.
Yeah.
He didn't quite have enough money apparently. So
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, I don't think Sylvie told him to steal the money. I think she just
oh no,
accept no, she just accepted the money like she would from anybody else, and I'm sure she would have had to have been questioned. And my guess is that Sylvia's not her real name.
no,
Um
probably.
yeah, probably not. But yeah, so that would be the story of Grant Amato, and he is still in prison and he will rot, you know? So, yeah. But yeah, it's like so what was going on with him mentally, Joe? What was the
A lot, really, probably. And I'm sorry I jumped ahead of you there a couple times. We didn't get a chance to really coordinate before, but you did a great job on telling us the story, and I think you made some excellent points. And the first one, I think, was just the fact that, like we talked, well, I let go earlier, that we're dealing with a guy that's in his 30s, but it sounds like the way he was being treated, he's in his late teens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's sitting at home and he doesn't have a job and he's sleeping all day and playing games all night or up on these porn sites. It's obvious that he had some depressive issues. We said his family never thought that thought he was going to kill himself. But I agree with you.
Mhm.
I think his personality wouldn't allow that to happen. And
No.
he all his life he pretended apparently to have this loving relationship with his family, but for a couple of $100,000, he decided to start shooting everybody. Um,
Yeah.
but what was weird to me, Mrs. W, and maybe you'll understand this, is how does a person get away with stealing $200,000 and nobody notices for so long? I mean, to
That
me, it's just kind of baffling.
that that family really let it they really gave him the benefit of the doubt. I mean,
Yeah,
but the family itself, I mean, they really did seem like a very supportive and loving family, and it was really a tragedy like what happened. And yes, part 5, he was a nurse. He
yes,
was a nurse. He was actually taking care of patients, and which is really disturbing. But yeah, it's like he had, that whole drug thing and he was fired. Thank God, because who knows, like, how his nursing career would have ended up. God forbid he set his eyes on a patient that didn't want anything to do with him anymore.
right.
Yeah.
But
So,
he and Cody had gone to nurse anesthetist school together, and Grant failed, of course. He
mhm.
didn't. I don't think he was as smart as Cody, and I think Dad Chad treated him differently. At least, I mean, Jason, the oldest son, kind of said that too. That um, Dad was hard on Jason, Dad was hard on Grant, but Cody was a golden child, and I know you and I talked about that a little bit earlier about
Yeah.
having a golden child in a family, and I can tell you from a big family that does happen. You have what we call the black sheep, and then you have golden children, and that's kind of a family dynamic in a lot of families, and I think that's what took place here.
Yeah.
And Grant was jealous from a young age. I kind of find his mom a little bit odd too. She spent most of her time out of the home, it sounds like, down at the stables with the horses. And when her horse died, she still kept going down to the stables every day. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the mistake that the whole family made was allowing Grant, well, not really allowing, but enabling him to continue with his uh, addiction to this porn site instead of letting him face the consequences, which I want to tell everybody that's a parent out there, you've got to let your kids face consequences for the behavior. Cody's parents, tried to sweep this under the rug and tried to help him all they could. And even his brother, Cody, was going to pay for Grant to get out of trouble and did a couple of times. And Cody was, willing to take care of all the financial problems Grant had caused. So to me, in the end, when you're evaluating Grant, the first thing I'd want to do is drug test him because, like we said with the propofol,
Right.
um, it's valuable, it's dangerous. I think if he were given it to the patients, there would have been more charges. And I think you're right. His mom and dad helped him get out of the charges, and his brother Cody agreed to pay the aunt back that he'd stolen money from. So they were just busy covering up his tracks. Meanwhile, he was continuing to do everything he was doing.
I'm not 100% sure that he wasn't taking any drugs, or it could be that he was just staying up all night, and that's why his eyes were like so sunken in from like lack of sleep, maybe. But he was awfully thin, which kind of
Yeah.
goes the being so thin. I mean, I feel like it kind of goes along with the drug, because
Drug addiction.
because if you look at his picture, when he first started out in nursing, he looks much healthier. Like the one we showed where he was with his brother Cody, it was in one of the clips.
Right.
He looked much healthier than he does today. But I know when he was asked for a media interview, he said yes, but only if they could put him in touch with a millionaire who would help him get out of prison.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, so it's like, mom and dad are dead. They're the millionaires that usually try to get me out of this, but they're dead. So, hey, if you can hook me up with a millionaire to help me get out of this shit, yeah, I'll give you an interview. But yeah, he was just really manipulative and, just really a horrible. He's like one of my least favorite ones that we've done. He's just like,
Yeah, me too. He rubs me the wrong way, and that typically that's somebody that may have borderline personality disorder because those are the type of people that really rub everybody the wrong way. And I think he had that quality. I think he kind of weirds everybody out. Um,
yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
he was definitely antisocial too, I think, because, you know, like we were talking about earlier, if you love your family, you don't end up getting angry enough to shoot them in the face when they come home. And the other thing, I don't think he had any major mental illnesses that caused this problem or caused him
Mm-hmm.
to kill his family. I think it was all selfishly motivated. Um,
Yeah.
so that's a real sign that we're dealing with somebody with a personality disorder rather than somebody with a major psychiatric problem, and
Mm-hmm.
especially the way he carried out the murders. Now, I listened to your timeline, and I think that what I had seen there at the end, what they determined was like the mom was killed first. Was that correct, or am I wrong about that?
No, she was killed first, and honestly, I don't think he would have killed the mom. I think that she would have just been the only witness, and I think he kind of had to kill the mom. He didn't have anything against the mom or with Jason.
Right.
Yeah, Jason and the mom, he didn't have anything against them. It was mainly Cody and the dad. That's who he wanted to get back with. Because if you'll remember, mom was kind of like, he's my baby. Yeah,
Yeah.
you could use my phone. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mom was just
Yeah.
she was like very, very you know, she didn't handle that right. But anyway, we are running out of time. Hi, Sly Park. It's good to see you. Thank you for everyone that joined us in the chat. Please join us next Tuesday for somebody else that's crazy. But anything you'd like to say, Joe, before we get out of here?
No, I just hope we have a good crowd for the next show, and thank you all for watching. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.